The world has become this place where masculinity has become a word that makes people cringe, mainly because we attach this other word to it, and that word is toxic. My guest today really breaks masculinity down into some other spectrums, and ultimately, we talk about immature versus mature masculinity and what those mean. To quote Father Michael Butler, all of our male characteristics and attributes are not here for our own self aggrandizement. They are not here for our own self benefit. Rather, they're to be used in service to others. This definition, which I believe is a true definition of masculinity, it's not toxic in the least. This was a great interview with an amazing man. I'm sure you're going to get a ton out of this interview with Father Michael Butler, just like I did. So let's not waste another minute and get right into it.
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fire Forged Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host, Steve Baumgartner, and his guests in The Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fire Forged Leader.
Today we have a really special guest on the Fire Forge Leader podcast. We're bringing on Father Michael Butler. This is a man who has a wide spectrum of talents. He's an Orthodox priest by day. I guess that's really a 24-hour job, right?
Yeah, it's kind of 24 hours. Yeah, by day and by night, and weekends and holidays. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. He's also, in the bodybuilding circuit, and he does a lot of men's coaching. In today's episode, we're really going to talk about masculinity and what that really means. And without further ado, why don't we just start off by a little bit of an intro, Father?
Okay. Well, no, you did very well. Yes, I am an Orthodox priest. I have been one for 28 years now, I think. Yeah, something like that. And then, it's 28 years because my 38th anniversary was last week, and it's 10 years. I'm an Orthodox priest. I have been. I love my profession. I can't imagine doing anything else. It's immensely gratifying work. And the work that I do with men is kind of an outgrowth of that. And I've always been interested in sort of men's work or men's issues my whole life. It's just something I think it was because in my youth, my dad died when I was 8 years old. And I had a stepdad. We were not that close, but I think I did not quite know what it meant to be a man or what it meant to kind of grow up fully. And so I was always, I did my undergraduate work in psychology, in Jungian psychology, archetypal stuff. And they always say in all research, there is me search. So I think I was trying to figure myself out. And I was interested sort of in what nowadays we call men's work from even before when Robert Bly wrote Iron John. So I've had my fingers in men's work for going on 30 years now. And it's been an integral part of my own personal development. And I noticed about 5 years ago, we started receiving into the Orthodox Church large numbers of young men, like college age to early 30s. They were hungry for truth. They were looking for structure and stability. And one of the things I really noticed about them was that they were stuck. They were stuck somewhere between late adolescence and early adulthood and did not know how to get over the hump. One of my stock phrases I've been using lately with them has been, so you're telling me that 15 years of smoking weed and playing video games and jerking off to porn have not been the best preparation for life. And they say, wow, Father, do you have to cut so close to the bone? Because they can all kind of identify with that. And so I realized that in addition to helping these men with their faith formation, there's a lot of young men out there who needed formation in basically growing up and coming to a mature understanding of what their own masculinity meant. And so it opened up for me, like I said, about 5 years ago, a real avenue where I saw a pressing and persistent need that I thought I could begin to fill. So I've been sort of expanding my work, my own research. I've done a little bit of lecturing, did a couple of retreats, and now I've got a major retreat lined up for October that I'm going to do. And I've been playing around a little bit with some one-on-one coaching. I think this fall we're going to start something a little more substantive and make what I think is helpful and beneficial for men available to a wider audience. I've been on social media seriously about 10 months, and that's been going very well. I guess apart from that, Joe, you mentioned sort of the bodybuilding thing. I have been a competitive bodybuilder for 9 years. I think that phase of my life has recently come to an end, but it's been a really swell run, and I've enjoyed that quite a lot. I got started late at 53. I'd always wanted to get in shape all my life, and never really did that. We can go into some reasons why if you'd like, but I told my wife, I regretted that I didn't get into shape when I was 20, 30, 40, and 50. And I said, I'm going to regret something else when I'm 60 years old, but it's not going to be this. And she said, okay, I'll help you with that. And so, we modified, all of our meals and all of that sort of stuff. So she's been very supportive, and it's really one of the best things I ever did for myself, both in terms of personal maturation and learning grit and how to grind through stuff, and opened up to me a whole different world of friends and acquaintances that's been really very stupendous. It was life-changing for me. And apart from that, as I say, I'm married. I got 2 grown sons. People would usually ask, I'm 62 years old. I'm not ashamed to mention that. I am becoming an old man, and I'm kind of comfortable, being, the old guy who, is happy to tell other men stuff your dad or your granddad should have taught you. And for those of you who wonder, you get old when your eyebrows start going gray. Okay, that's the sign. This and this kind of go gray earlier, but when your eyebrows start going, that's a bad sign. You're there. All right. So probably man wisdom you probably didn't want to know.
Just physically, right? That's
yeah. And well, the mental things start to go. I'm sort of reaching the age to where, honey, have you seen my glasses, sort of thing. But
no,
so
that's
long
all
as
right.
I get my nap and a little roughage in my diet, I'm generally pretty good.
Get the Metamucil can up on the shelf there. So something that really, really caught me in your intro there, Father, is you stated that you didn't know what a man was, and you went on this 30-year search.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you find out? What is a man?
The great question. That's I don't have a 25-word or less answer. I can't put that into a tweet. What I've really been focusing on is looking at it, as I sort of mentioned before, the distinction between immature and mature masculinity. And I think that's largely where I got caught up myself. Probably a little bit of arrested development when I was young. Actually, it was sort of trauma from my dad's death. Honestly, I remember this. I don't know if I've mentioned this before on social media, so this will be an exclusive for you. I remember the day my dad died. I was in elementary school. I was in 2nd grade, and my aunt came to pick me up instead of my mother from school. So that was clue 1. Something wasn't right. She took me home, and I grew up in East Texas. So when someone dies, all of the relatives come and bring food and just stay, dawn to dusk and later and all. So the driveway was filled with cars, and Mama took me and my sister aside and told us what had happened. But I remember later in the evening, one of the older women in my family said, "You're the man of the house now."
Mm.
And I remember it like it was yesterday. And there is no way that an 8-year-old boy who's just lost his dad could possibly be the man of the house. So it bred in me for a long time a real sense of inadequacy, as I couldn't fulfill the role. I was a failure, loser from the get-go. And so, I think it really goes back to that if you want to find a real beginning to it. But what I found was there was a lot of immature behavior in me, and the way that I've come to formulate it best, or as close as I can come right now, in distinguishing mature masculinity, what I think we all strive for, what we want, and if I can, I'll put on my pastor's hat for just a moment, I think it's God's design for us as well, is that all of the attributes of masculinity that are given to us are in fact given. They are a gift. They are part of our makeup. They are what God has given to us, for which we should be grateful. I think we really do need to be grateful that we are men. I think women need to be grateful that they are women. And then all of the male characteristics and attributes that are ours are not for our own self-aggrandizement. They are not for our self-benefit. They are to be used in service to others. This is why, for example, Ryan Michler in his Order of Man talks about protecting, providing, and presiding. I mean, these are traditional masculine. Well, who do we protect? First, ideally, we ought to be able to protect ourselves, but then we protect those people who are in our care, our wives, our children, our businesses, our communities, our homes, all of that. Who do we provide for? Ideally, men provide for themselves and also then have more than enough so that they can provide for people in their care. And footnote, this is one of the distinguishing characteristics between a boy and a man, is that a boy consumes more than he produces because he's dependent. And a man is expected to produce more than he consumes. He ought to be adding value to the world. He ought to be adding value to his family, adding value to his community, to his employer. He's got an employer, but he needs to be adding value to the world above and beyond what he himself consumes. All right. So these fundamental attributes that we see that we have are ultimately to be used in service to the rest of the world. And I assume you've reached an age. I haven't asked your age, but I assume you've kind of reached the age where you appreciated the fact that, no, I don't have, this male body is not here for my own pleasure. It's not here, I'm not big and strong so that I can domineer other people or bully other people into doing it. It's not that. The greatest satisfaction we have in life is being in service to other people, to meet their needs, to relieve their pain. And this we do, not only familially, where we raise our children to protect them, adding value to our business, our customers, whoever those people may be, when we're doing. So, I mean, even the fundamentals of business, I think, are kind of hardwired into men as part of, our characteristics that we then give back to the world. So exactly what a man is, like I say, that's real hard for me to say, but I have a much better picture of what a mature man looks like. I suppose the only thing I'd say to flesh that out is that I'm convinced that there are inherent, innate characteristics of masculinity that are hardwired into us, that are objective. And so, yeah, some cultural things change. That's fine. So what masculine men look like in the 2020s looks a little different than what we looked like in the 70s, which remember, but still, the protecting, providing, the presiding, the expectation that men added value, that men themselves valued and judged themselves according to certain criteria. And, here we can go to Jack Donovan and his 4 tactical virtues of mastery, courage, strength, and honor. I think all men sort of look at those sorts of things. They judge themselves by those standards. They judge other men by those standards, and men establish our hierarchies according, to those standards as well. And yeah, please, don't tell me, to talk to the hand if if you're a woman and you say, well, women can be honorable and strong and courageous, and all too. Yes, absolutely they can. But I have never yet met a woman who said, yeah, you know, Susie, she is the most honorable woman that I have ever met. You know, not in the same way that a man says he's honorable. If he told you something, he's got integrity. His word is his bond. You can trust that, you know. So I think there are really some objective characteristics of masculinity that track across time and culture. And those are the kinds of things which always serve us well when we exercise them, when we develop them, you know, and when we live according to them. I don't know, I've rattled on a bit, but there's I talked around your question because it's too hard to answer easily.
No, I love that answer. I love the idea of the mature masculinity, but then tying it back to service, right? My
Mhm.
mind is going on this. You know, everybody cringes in today's society when we talk about masculinity because people have hooked this other word to it, which is toxic.
Mhm.
But in the way that you just described it, mature masculinity is exactly the opposite because
Exactly.
now we're serving others. You know, sex, for example, right? That
Mhm.
is for a man and a woman to come together and for you to serve your partner and eventually procreate,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
which we've lost sight of. And the toxic man, the immature man, is going to do hookups and things like that, which is a total disrespect
Oh
for
yeah.
the other gender.
Yeah. And this is
So,
where, and I mean, even in marriage, you know, men can do this. I mean, sometimes, you know, we want to use our wives, you know, just for our own self gratification, you know, in which case, you know, what should be an ultimate act of intimacy that's not only physical but emotional and spiritual as well. A total coming together of being gets reduced to just rubbing genitals together to get off, you know, maybe because we have an itch to scratch or because we're anxious and we're using sex for self-medication and all. Yeah.
mm,
So, you know, even there, it's so. But the understanding of toxic masculinity is precisely the kind of immature masculinity that, you know, once men sort of begin to come to an understanding, it seems to hit in their late 20s. This is where I'm sort of seeing sort of the bell curve. Most of the guys are in their late 20s are starting to kind of wake up and say, wow, yeah, you know, there's time out. This is not working for me. I need to do something else. And they're not entirely sure what they need to do, or they need to shoulder more responsibility and they're scared to death of it, or they don't know where to begin. Um, and so, yeah, they start looking for dad 2.0.
right.
And you know, that's where a lot of us who are trying to offer advice, you know, value to men in social media, you know, through coaching courses, classes, organizations, you know, and all are filling the need there. You know, but
Yeah.
the toxic guys are the selfish ones. They really are. Where they're using all of the gifts and characteristics of masculinity for their own pleasure, you know, and get the most that they can out of stuff. And like I say, the characteristics are fundamentally good. They're hardwired into us, and they're simply being misused. So it's not a huge step from immature to mature masculinity, but it does take, uh, I was going to say a fundamental mind shift. It might almost take a conversion, you know, in some
Yeah.
respects. And I don't necessarily mean that in a religious sense. I mean sort of like fundamental shift in kind of orientation. Oh, I've been living like a selfish bastard for 25 years. You know, how's that working for you, bro? Well, it's not. You know, I need to do something else. So what do I do? Well, let's try being in service to some other people and let's see how we feel and what all. And then they begin to open up and you begin to see a real flowering of personality, you know, and of real, you know, genuine interest and enthusiasm when they see that, oh, the first place, yeah, I do really have something to give. I have something to offer the world. I have something of value that other men look up to and say, yeah, that's worthwhile. Keep doing that. We need what you have, you know, and then they get the satisfaction of contributing something, of assuming a responsibility, meaningful responsibility, you know, for something that actually adds value or transforms the world or is a genuine benefit to their friend or their company or whoever it may happen to be. And then they find how immensely gratifying that is to say, yeah, that was okay, you know, and that sort of that deep satisfaction is something I've come really to appreciate. And it might be, if I've talked to enough guys recently about it, it might be that that's almost a function of age, that you might have to do it for a little while before you really begin to appreciate it. In that respect, just riffing off of that, I think maybe mature masculinity is a bit like beef jerky. It may be hard and tough. You might have to chew it a really long time before you get the flavor. But once you do, you'll be golden.
Oh, it sets in. Yeah. Yeah. That's a, that's a good analogy. Uh, so going back to this toxic masculinity, just kind of in my mind, there's the immature
Mhm.
masculinity, which is basically naive or doesn't know any better.
Mhm.
And then there's a fork in the road, right? Every man's going to come to it where he's going to mature in his masculinity or decide to take the easy road and take that other fork. And I think that's really where we diverge into toxic versus mature. The immature is just immature. It's naive. It's
It is
uneducated.
sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's not as innocent as that. And by that, I'm not laying culpability or blame here, but sometimes a lot of guys are immature because they're using their gifts or what. Basically, they're so wounded that they're sort of self-medicating all the time. And so they operate, there's sort of a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset. And I think maybe that's part of the conversion from immature to mature. I don't have enough. I got to get everything for myself. So I'm going to be greedy and selfish. Sex is for me to satisfy my own desires. I'm going to go out and make money so that I can have money so I can buy and do the things that I want to do, and all of that. And when you finally realize that, no, I'm enough on my own. I have something to give. I have more than I need. And so I'm able then to provide to other people. I don't have to be so selfish. I got enough. I can give time, I can give talent, I can give, whatever benefits I have to other people. I can shower a woman with attention and affection without needing to have that mirrored back to me in kind of a narcissistic way, or transactional relationships, where, okay, I'll give you X units of attention so long as I get X units of attention back,
Right.
where it's just, man, I love being with you. How can I help? What can I give you? How can I be of service? What can I do to please you this afternoon? You want dinner? All right, here, let me make you dinner. You want to sit on the couch and Netflix and chill? I'm cool with that. I just want to be with you, and that kind of works nicely, but it's out of a sense of abundance, not of neediness. And you've probably seen this. Neediness is one of the ugliest things on a man. It really is.
Oh, for sure.
So when you can overcome that sense of neediness, the sense of inadequacy in some respects, and know that when you're comfortable in your own skin, you know who you are, you know that you have something to offer, and you're willing to step forward and to offer that. Man, that's a big transition. And for some men, it's terrifying. It's really terrifying. Um, when I mentioned before we started the call that I had met Bedros Keuilian about a year and a half ago
Mhm.
at a conference that I helped to organize in Cancun, and we met up about 7 months again later for a project that we were working on at the time. And he said to me um, uh, that I needed to be on social media. He says, you have a good message. You're thinking about doing some coaching. You need to build an audience on social media. And he even gave me a very nice incentive to begin to do it. But even having done that, it took me weeks before I could post anything to social media. I was terrified, and at the first, no one paid any attention. Well, of course, no one's going to pay any attention at the very beginning. You're nobody, and I've come to appreciate that the algorithms, even though they genuinely are black magic, I'm convinced algorithms are black magic. But after a while, they do eventually begin to take a little bit of notice of you. Okay. And so I began to grow a bit of an audience, and then my skin got thick because, of course, there were people who were critical in sometimes extraordinarily vicious ways. Um, and you have to learn to deal with that. But what I've largely found, and this is where I focus a lot of my work now, is that taking those initial steps, that you can't wait for the most auspicious time. You can't wait for the stars to line up, or what's the current phrase, for Mercury to come out of retrograde. If you're Christian, you can't wait for a sign from God. Okay. No, you need to step out and you need to take the initiative. And I don't care how damn scary that is. Nothing changes until we take action. I've seen it over and over and over in my life. Tell me you've seen the same thing in yours.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And that's why when we're dealing with other people, whether it's in leadership, masculinity, anywhere, they have to take the steps towards the light,
Yeah.
right? We can illuminate the path, but we can never push them along and get them to where they want to go.
And that's the scariest thing. And I have found for myself, I forget who said it. I think was it in the, I'm always misquoted. So I apologize to whoever knows the quote correctly. That when you take the first step, the universe conspires, to bring things together.
Against you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I massacred the quotation. I apologize. But largely that's the case. And, if you're Christian, once you step on the path, it's like the parable of the prodigal son. Once the prodigal son comes to himself, okay, it's not until he gets up out of the pig pen and walks towards his father. The father then sees him a long way off and runs out to meet him. So in Christian terms, if you want something, begin to pursue it, and then God's grace will be there to help. But don't sit on your can waiting for God to act first and to kick you in the rump so you begin to act. It really does take our own effort. Terrifying as it is, uncertain as we may be, you only have to see where to put your foot for the next step. You don't need to see the whole path. Just take one step, and then the following step will be illumined. And some people mistake this, and especially young men who see everything in extremes and in black and white only. They say, "Oh, then I have to jump in with both feet and just hope to God I don't sink, I swim instead." Say, no. No, the secret is in very small things. And the phrase I use often is you have to lean into your fear. Lean into it. Don't jump in with both feet. Lean into your fear. Push your edges as far as you can, as far as you're comfortable doing. And when you can't stay there anymore, then take a step back, and take a breather, or, have a cup of coffee or whatever it is you need to do. But lean into your fear. When you're ready again, then lean into and push it just a little bit more. And you will be amazed at how far you get in a week, in a month, in a year. You will astonish yourself.
Oh, for sure.
The way it is. And so, if you're looking to grow up, or if you're looking for any particular undertaking, if you're in a sort of a time of transition where you know that life isn't working, things are a little out of joint, you need to do something different with your life, or maybe it's time to change your careers, or you need to propose to that one woman, or whatever it may happen to be, then sort of leaning into your fear is that's going to get you there. It's going to get you there.
I always think of a rubber band, thinking about what you're talking about. You stretch it a little bit, you let it relax, you can stretch it a little bit more. But if you apply too much pressure,
it will snap.
Off it goes, right?
Yeah. There's truth in that. It's a good analogy. Yeah.
Sorry, Father.
No, go right ahead.
I guess just kind of transitioning, there's a lot of people putting work into masculinity right now. There's a lot of really good men. Yourself being one of those. What are really the benefits to society as we build up these stronger men and restore some of this masculinity that has been lost over time?
I think let's approach this. There are a few ways. In the first place, I think everyone benefits. Men, women, children, businesses, churches, society, everything. Everyone benefits when everyone is as healthy as they can be, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And for a lot of men, young men especially, have been fed not only the toxic masculinity line for ages. Over half of children grow up in single parent homes, almost always in the case of growing up with a single mother, absent father. Even when dads are physically present, they are all too often, unfortunately, checked out and are not well engaged with their children's lives. In the education system, the number of male teachers in, primary and secondary education is quite low. I am told that there are more women fighter, percentage-wise, there are more women fighter pilots than there are men who teach kindergarten.
Really?
Yeah, ain't that a weird statistic? Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it kind of is. But, also you think, a man, he wants to be a kindergarten teacher. What's the first thought that comes into our minds by social conditioning? What is this? Some creep who wants to get around kids?
Yeah,
rather than
whatever.
a man who can appropriately love children in a masculine way and genuinely wants to see them grow up. Okay. So, I mean, there's kind of a lot of conditioning and a set of assumptions that men are working against. Even I've seen with my own children, my own sons, in looking at starting their own businesses and, sort of looking at women and minority set-asides and preferential treatment, for education, employment, businesses, and a whole lot of other things. And just where everything that's traditionally masculine gets criticized and ridiculed. The examples we see on television of husbands, the buffoon dad, of whom Homer Simpson is kind of the classic example, who is always, for some reason, married to the strong, independent, successful woman who always is able to fix everything. And all the cultural examples that we're given are really quite poor as well. If we can restore a healthier sense of masculinity, men will be better. So will women and families and businesses and communities. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, the particular strengths that men bring to bear, confidence, resiliency, willingness to work hard, incisive, determination that, we grab hold of something, we ain't going to turn loose. Those kinds of things. These are admirable qualities, that serve communities well, businesses well too. The guy who's really on a project that he just dearly loves and is willing to pour, every waking hour the day into it. It was amazing. And men will do that in ways that women will not. And that's no criticism of women. It's simply, a different set of priorities. If I could tell, I was listening to Jordan Peterson, one of his podcast interviews a couple of weeks ago, and he pointed out that he says for about 10 years he worked with a group of very high-powered lawyers in New York. And what these psychologists were trying to do is to say, listen, if we can get your top performers to perform even better, you make more money, your performers are happier and, better, healthier, so that they can continue to do what they do well longer. And so it's benefit to your employees, it's a benefit to your firm as well. And what they found was when women lawyers had reached sort of the pinnacle of their career, when they'd made it successfully through law school, college and law school and all of that, and finally got hired by a really nice law firm, one of those big high-powered things in New York, they get about 29 or 30 years old and suddenly they want to start a family and have kids. And these law firms were having a hell of a time retaining the women. Why? Because the men were willing to work 80 hours a week on a project. Peterson even says, they would work for the end of the year bonus. It says they were making money. They didn't need the end of the year bonus, but men are competitive. And by God, I'm going to bring in more money so that, I'm going to win this thing at the end of the year in ways that, that you're not. And then we were looking and say, what are these dumbass guys doing here? They're chasing something that doesn't mean anything. They're burning the candle at both ends. Who wants to live like that? And then when I say, no, I want a 40-hour week and I want to have time off for my kids' soccer games, and it was really hard to, when the business of law didn't really allow that much flexibility there. And it was just a different thing. So I think there are is it an unbalanced life for men? Yeah, I get that. But men are willing to do that in ways that women are not. And the perfectly balanced life, you can dispute, discuss it in comments if you have comments on your, on your podcast site. I'm not sure the balanced life is a reality. I think we have seasons. And, like maybe when you're young, you can work 80 hours a week, and you can do that for 5, 10, maybe 15 or 20 years. And then, you just get burnt out of it and you want something else. So maybe you sacrifice social life and family for a little while. Then, later on, maybe you sacrifice business more for your family. I know I did when I had young kids. Yeah.
Yep.
It was a new season and priorities got restructured for a while. And I did that. One of the reasons I put off sort of the bodybuilding thing until I was 53, which is how old I was when I started, was because I was an empty nester. I had time, and the thing about being an empty nester is like being a newlywed but with money. So so I had some freedom, and I had a little more money that I could pour, because it's not a cheap sport. It's not a cheap hobby at all. And so I had the time and the money to do it. And I didn't have that when I was younger, when I had kids at home and when I was paying for college. Okay. So I think there are just seasons for those sorts of things. But again, that willingness to, that tenacity that a lot of men have over projects, I think, properly channeled, is a beautiful quality that's of benefit to everybody. So I think there are a number of them. And ultimately, when men are healthy, physically, psychologically, spiritually, and then they are allowed to to flourish in ways that men are, given a worthy cause, given a meaningful responsibility. My God, men have died for countries. Men have died for their faith. Men are willing to give everything for things that are important to them, and to harness this in a noble cause. And by noble cause, I don't necessarily mean, combating evil, or in the grand scale, or slaying dragons. I mean, turning out a really quality product. I mean, providing excellent service, to a customer. I mean, being a loving husband and a father. If you can give yourself wholeheartedly to doing these sorts of things, men will go to extraordinary lengths in order to fulfill those things. And when we see it, and I don't know how clearly women see it and appreciate it. I think they do. I think they really do. That men are willing to go for stuff in a dogged way that maybe women are not, or at least I think there's a quiet admiration for that quality. But men definitely recognize it, and we say, that man's got it together. He's doing a good job. And that sort of quiet recognition and admiration that men have for other men who are really killing it, is the testimony to the fact that somebody is in fact doing something well, and is of genuine value, either family, church, community, or the world.
Yeah. I think women do notice it as well. Going back to the
I think they do. By and large, they do.
You look at that immature and the neediness and things like that comes with the immaturity. Those aren't the type of people that women usually were attracted to. I always found it weird when I was younger that women were really attracted to the bad boys. But, there's something that the bad boys have that a lot of other guys who at those ages, 18, 19 years old, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that the other guys don't have. And that is confidence. It's confidence, even though it's pointed wrong directionally, right? It's like confidence.
But it's very attractive. It's very, confidence looks very good on a man. It really does.
Right.
Whether, and especially in young men, maybe something my wife always commented on with my two boys. He says, where do they get this completely ungrounded, irrational self-confidence? It's like they've not accomplished anything, but they act like they've conquered the world. And I said, yeah, it's this kind of I found it kind of endearing, and so did a lot of young women, as well. They were very successful dating, when they were younger, and confidence looks very good. But the confidence sits on us. How do we gain confidence? A lot of people think, I have to be confident before I can go out and approach a woman, that I might be interested in, or I need to be confident before I can go out and sell a product or propose an idea or something like that. No, confidence is not where you start. Confidence is the product of winning. Confidence comes from success. And that doesn't have to be huge success. Confidence comes from stacking up little wins every single day. And if we can begin to do that, and this is why so many of us in the men's self-development arena talk about morning routines, regular daily practices and all. So, Bedros is real big about getting up, at a certain hour. We all know Jocko Willink is at the gym at 4:30 in the morning because his wristwatch, is right there showing you. I used to see that on Instagram. Bedros is very big. He gets up at a certain time. He drinks 30 ounces of water. That man actually sends 3 text messages every morning expressing gratitude to people that he knows. I mean, what a beautiful practice. But these are the things that he does every single day when he gets up. And why? Because we begin to stack wins. And when you've won 4, 5, 6 times the first 30 minutes, you're out of bed in the morning, man, that sets you up for success. And this is why, Jordan Peterson says to make your bed. So I always tell the young men, listen to Uncle Jordan and make your bed. It actually accomplishes something. It's not just, oh, well, I don't have a messy bedroom that nobody sees. No, it's my own self-dignity. I made myself a promise that I would do this. And by God, I kept a promise to myself. And I am reliable. And I am a man of my word. And when you can get up and establish that and prove it, first thing in the morning, you're setting off the day on a great foot. And so you need confidence in life. Keep promises to yourself and stack up little wins in a lot of ways, because the confidence is fungible. That is, it's transferable. So you win a lot at home when nobody's looking because nobody else is awake yet. But that confidence transfers into everything else that you do the rest of the day. So you can approach anything. If you have trouble approaching beautiful women, then are you talking to the girl who checks out your groceries at the supermarket? Are you talking to the old man who's in line behind you? Are you talking to strangers? Can you talk to anybody? It was an interesting thing growing up in Texas, living most of the first half of my life in Texas. Southerners talk to everybody. It's just an easy thing to do. When I moved to Michigan, about 30 plus years ago, I thought Northerners don't do this. And I was looked at like I'd grown horns when I just started talking casually to the people in the grocery line. Like, okay, I'm not in Texas anymore, and this is considered weird behavior up here. But I've grown old enough to where I don't give a damn anymore. And I've started talking to people much more. And I tell you what, they're a lot more open to it now than they were before lockdown. So a lot of people were really lonely during lockdown, and that lack of human touch, that lack of human concern, lack of human interaction, I think made people very, very hungry for it. So I encourage you, all of your listeners, just learn to be open with everybody. Then you won't be as intimidated when someone powerful or important or the big boss or the CEO or, that drop dead gorgeous man or woman shows up in front of you. You'll be okay. You'll be okay. Right. Or you'll be a lot more okay than you were if you never talked to anybody.
And some of it comes with expectations too, right? Yeah. If you're just talking, it's just talk.
Mm-hmm. This is important.
No expectation of an outcome.
Yes, this is very important. Absolutely. In some of the circles of men's work, is called OI, outcome independence. You have to be, you cannot rely on getting a particular outcome for your self-satisfaction or for your sense of self. You have to love the process. Like myself, my last bodybuilding contest was actually just a month ago, and it went poorly. Why? Because everybody was bigger than me, and they win, and I didn't. And okay, but I mean, I worked as hard as I could. I brought my best package that I could to the stage. I did everything that I could possibly in order to be as prepared as I possibly could in order to appear on stage. I could not control who else showed up. They were bigger than me and they won. Okay, so, my sense of myself as an amateur bodybuilder or as a person or anything else is not contingent upon me winning on stage. Right. I know who I am. And I'm still the best built 62-year-old man that I know. And as far as I can tell, I have maximized my physical potential. I can push my body no further. I can add no more muscle. This is about the limits of what I can do. And it's in the gym, in bodybuilding circles, I'm not that big. But out in the real world,
You're in the
I
top
actually look
1%.
pretty awesome. So
Yeah.
context matters too. But you're right, you can't be dependent upon particular outcomes because there's no guarantees. You might
Right.
do everything perfectly right. You might be the friendliest guy on earth. You might be good looking, dressed to the nines, and go and meet the attractive girl at the bar. And, there just may not be any chemistry there. And you have no control over that. But you are the only variable you can control in that situation. So did you bring your best?
Right.
Like the same way in jobs, in work or in life, anywhere, you bring the best that you can. You're competing for a job, you have no control over else who is applied for the same position.
But
You
you
can
can
do
make
all that you
yourself
can
as
to
ready
prepare.
as possible for that
Get
moment.
yourself as ready as possible, and then see what opportunities, and then very often opportunities kind of open up for you when you're ready for them.
Right. Right.
They do.
So interesting on that entire topic there.
Uh-huh.
You'll probably never believe this, but I used to have a problem sitting at a conference room table talking to 5 people.
Okay.
It just horrified me to do any sort of public speaking,
Uh-huh.
present anything, what have you.
Because you felt you were being judged if regardless of how it went.
Yeah, and some of that comes from my past events, what have you. But I had a boss who just kept on, working with me and putting me in front of people and what have you. Uh, I've spoken in front of thousands of people
Okay.
at this point in time, up on a stage, just me and them. I have this podcast now. It's amazing when you're not tied to that outcome, right?
Yeah.
And when going back to something that you said earlier, leaning into your fear a little bit, pulling back when you need to, and lean in again,
Mm-hmm.
and just reps, right?
Yeah. It's just reps. You want to banish fear about appearing in public? Try doing it in wearing nothing but a little strap of spandex, in front of 2,000 total strangers. Tell you what, that cured me of a lot of fear. I'm much less scared of stuff than I was the first time I did that. That's God's honest truth. Okay.
Oh, I bet.
And one other thing that you just mentioned that I think is worth bringing up or riffing off of is, like you said, you had a boss that coached you through that. I've sort of found it's been my own experience that every time I have made a substantial improvement in my life, or really, raised it up a level, went to an entirely new level, I always had a coach or a teacher or a mentor. I look back on my life and that was absolutely the case. I had an old Cistercian monk in graduate school who taught me how to do academic research, how to study, how to organize my thoughts, how to organize a paper, how to think straight and logically, and to study and to present a thesis in an organized and convincing manner. Absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. The coach I have currently, for my physique, 9 years ago when I started, I lost 40 pounds.
Wow.
And I was the fat kid after dad died. And I lost a little weight in high school. I had the dad bod. My waist in my 30s, my waist was keeping up with my age. I swear to God, I was 40-inch waist when I was 40 years old. Okay. And I pulled back from that. It was too horrible. But I always struggled with it. And, but once I got a coach, then I made substantive gains, and that changed my life. And when I met Bedros, and so he encouraged me to start social media, and he sort of occasionally coaches me a little bit. I get a phone call with him every so often, which is really very nice.
Yeah.
I have a coach, changed my life. And for 23 years, I had an old Romanian monk who had been 11 years in communist prisons in the bad old communist days in the 50s and 60s in Romania. For 23 years, he was my spiritual father. The man saved my soul. He directed my life. He was the father I never had. And, he's been dead now just over 8 years. May we be worthy of his prayers and intercessions. But in every case where I've done really good work, there's been someone there to help, to oversee, to correct, to offer feedback, to be accountable to. And I don't know if that's absolutely necessary, but in my life, it proved those were the times I made the biggest gains. And so I'd encourage, any of your listeners, if you're stuck or you really want to go do something, go find somebody who's already done it. Listen to them. Do what you can to add value to their life. Don't just, want to try to leech value or information out of them. Try to be genuinely helpful, or, be supportive, or buy their product, pay for their time, at least buy them coffee or lunch, or something. But yeah, get in touch with someone who's already doing what you need to do, and the gains are just multiplied.
If nothing else, it's at least a force multiplier. But I also want to bring up that mentorship. Sometimes, people go down a road with coaching, mentorship, and they start to plateau.
Mhm.
Sometimes you need to look at that and also make sure that you up your game when you get to that point. Because sometimes you kind of average out with your coach or mentor, and then nobody's growing, right?
That's true. And I think in a lot of times mentoring relationships, you'll extract as much value as you can, or you will succeed beyond what your mentor has done. And I think there is always a time when, you've learned all that you can, and it's time to sort of step out on your own. And learning when you've overstayed your welcome. I don't know. That's a difficult thing. I've sort of known that with some people that, okay, this is gone about. I love the guy. Immense respect. My respect has grown. He was a towering figure in my life, but I need to step out from his shadow and either shine on my own, or, find myself somebody else to attach to. And it can be difficult. And sometimes mentors don't take kindly to that. I'll grant you that. It can sometimes feel like a betrayal when the student, surpasses the master. But if you get someone who's mature, it's, oh, great, man, you're doing fantastically. Run, God's blessing, go, and go. And I found that with my own kids. I was with my eldest son last month. I went to see him, and I reminded him that your dad is the only man who is genuinely, enthusiastic about your successes. Every other man might see you as a threat, or might be jealous of you, but your dad is ecstatic when you do better than your dad. And both my kids in some respects have surpassed me, and I could not be prouder. And
I think
it's a function of maturity. I think a good mentor will see you be delighted at the fact that you're soaring.
Yeah, I think that goes right back into those little bits of immaturity too. Whether you're a father, whether you're a leader at work, wherever, if you're in that mature spectrum, you're going to want the best for the people who you're presiding over. And it's that immaturity that really holds us back from that. Fathers who don't want their sons to be better, employers who don't want their employees to be better. They don't want them to go somewhere else and make better lives because they're greedy, whatever.
Or the young buck who shows up much better at your job than you are.
Right.
Who brings really great skills or tremendous energy and drive. Well, it can be threatening. I do admit
for sure.
it can be threatening. So sometimes those are difficult, depending on.
But at the end of the day, they make you look better. Right?
Yeah. And here is one of the things that you probably found in business too. I mean, you need to hire people who are better than you at certain aspects of your job or your business, and you pay them to do that kind of work because you can't do it as well. And the simple recognition of that, man, you're a genius at that. Take it and run. This is what I need doing. Go. God bless you. Make us both look good.
Yeah, I do that quite often, Father, because I'm a complete moron. I'm not gonna lie on this one. My talent is really deciphering a lot of information quickly and making a good decision. Okay. That's my leadership style. The tactical daily execution, and specific acumen, Not so much my thing. I'm good at maintenance and engineering. The rest of it,
Hmm.
yeah, someone else can do all the rest of it. Uh, but yeah, for sure. I love surrounding myself with good people because I always end up, the whole team looks good. I look good.
Yeah.
We get praised for it. We're meeting goals, crushing goals.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
You get good people around you, and 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 equals at least 3.
yeah,
Really does. Yeah. And that whole thing about, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, man, there's truth in that too. Yeah. So if you got
no,
lousy friends, if you're hanging around with stoners and drunks every weekend, man, don't expect you to be on your A game come Monday morning. It's just not going to happen. Just not going to happen.
not going to happen at all.
No.
Well, we're rounding up on an hour here, Father. So
Wow. Man, it went quick. We had a good time.
it always does when we talk. I mean,
Yeah.
it's great conversation as always.
Thank you.
Where can the listeners find you at?
I use a handle in my social media. It's average to alpha, which is AVG numeral 2 ALPHA. Average to alpha.com is my website. You can find me there. It's also the same handle that I use on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and God help me, TikTok. I'm on all of those media. Bedros says I have to be on TikTok. And honestly, that's where my primary audience is migrating these days. So I'm sort of there when they arrive. I'm already there. But average to alpha, you can find me there. I do short form stuff on Instagram and TikTok. I trying to put up some more longer form, some more substantive stuff on YouTube. And that's where most of the teaching that I do can be found. But if you like what I'm doing, if you're interested in learning more about what I do, the things that as I mentioned earlier, I hope to offer in the fall by way of some online courses. And I have a few spots for one-on-one coaching. Not a lot, because I am a full-time priest, and that does take up most of my time, but I have a little bit of time for that. They can find information about that on the website. So
Awesome.
that's what I do. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for this. I've enjoyed my time here, and I hope always that I've added value to your audience as well, and that it's been worth their while to listen to me prattle on.
I think it's been awesome, Father. I think this is going to challenge a lot of people's thought patterns about masculinity, take away that toxic name from it.
Yeah.
And really show the beauty in masculinity.
There is a genuine beauty there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And
there is.
And it doesn't take away from any other groups either. It's really, as we make ourselves stronger as men, we make society stronger, and we allow everybody else to become themselves as well.
Yeah. When we are not threatened by other men or women's success and all, and instead can encourage all of it. As you say, we're richer, they are richer, everybody benefits. It's not this fixed pie sort of idea that, if I have a bigger slice of it, it means there's less for everybody else. No, we've learned that's not really true. We can make the pie bigger for everybody. And so that's sort of it. My encouragement, like I said earlier, you are the only variable you can control. So, this goes for men, women, for everybody. Become the best man you can be. Become the best woman that you can be. Be the best employee you can be. Be the best man or woman of faith that you can be. Be the best parent that you can be. And if you need help, go and get training and education so you can be better. Shoulder as much responsibility as you can for your own life and to help other people. If you need more training, go and get more training. But genuine satisfaction really comes from a life of service. And if you can step up in whatever way, in whatever situation God has planted you to serve there and do it well. And if you have eyes to see, you may be sweeping floors at Costco, but if you do it with the right mindset, you can be raking the pathways in paradise. And you can add genuine value and take pride in anything that you do. Maybe that's an odd way to end, but somehow it seemed appropriate.
No, it was perfect. I think it needs to come with an amen at the end of it, because
paid and ordained to sound like a priest, so sometimes I do.
genuinely appreciate you being on, Father. God bless you, brother. And for everybody looking for that website, you can see it right down in the bottom. It's www.averageavg2 alpha.com. I really recommend that you check out Father Michael Butler. Look up other podcasts that he's done.
Mhm.
He's drops knowledge bombs right and left. I get something new every time I talk to him. He's got a lot of knowledge to share. If you find value in what he's sharing, go check him out on his website and take a look at his services. With that, God bless, Father, and we'll speak to you next time, sir.
Much obliged. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the forge.